We begin as we always do, with ash and ink. This story is about Ted. Now it's all that's left. It started as nothing more than a shared hobby. Ted and his friend Bee were amateur cavers, fascinated by the unseen world below our feet. One weekend, they returned to a familiar cave to explore a narrow passage they'd found years ago. It was barely wide enough to crawl through. But on this visit, something felt different. Ted said the air inside the cave was unusually still, as if it were waiting. They began chipping away at the rock to widen the passage, bit by bit, trip after trip. It was slow work, sometimes barely gaining an inch in a day. But each time they returned, the obsession grew. They gave the passage a name, Floyd's Tomb, inspired by a caver who had died trapped in a similar crevice. They joked about it at first, but these jokes would not last long. On one trip, Ted described hearing a faint whistling sound, soft, steady, like air leaking from behind the stone. But the thing was, it didn't change when they moved. It didn't shift or echo. It felt fixed, like something behind the rock was breathing and listening. One night after chipping, Bee said he'd had a nightmare. In it, he was stuck inside the passage, paralyzed, as something slowly crawled toward him from the dark. They kept going anyway. Eventually, they opened the hole wide enough for a person to squeeze through. Ted volunteered to go first. What he described next changed everything. He crawled through the newly opened passage, flashlight clutched tight in his mouth, feeling the rough stone scrape against his body. As he emerged into the chamber beyond, the first thing he noticed was the silence. It was the kind of silence that felt wrong, pressurized, as if the darkness itself was pushing in. The walls of the new chamber weren't like the rest of the cave. They were smooth, too smooth. And in the center of the floor, he found a small pile of rocks, arranged in a perfect spiral. That's when the whistling returned. But this time it came from inside the chamber. And then, Ted's flashlight flickered. Not once, 3 times. Like something had touched it. He didn't remember crawling out. He just remembered screaming. Bee pulled him back through the passage, and they left the cave in silence. Ted didn't sleep that night. When he closed his eyes, he saw the spiral. He heard the whistling, and then the dreams started. He wrote about one in his journal. I was in the cave, alone. The chamber was larger now. The walls were pulsing, like they were alive. Something was whispering my name. It wasn't a voice. It was a thought. And it wasn't mine. He stopped eating. He didn't return Bee's calls. The cave, he said, had opened something in him. And something had come out. Bee tried to check on him, but Ted wouldn't answer the door. Days passed. Then a final update appeared in his journal. I'm going back. I have to know what's in there. I won't be alone this time. Something's calling me back. I can feel it. Behind the stone. That was the last anyone heard from him. No one knows what happened to Ted. The blog was never updated again. Some say it was just a story, a prank. But ask anyone who's read it, and they'll tell you the same thing. It feels real, like someone's still down there, crawling through that passage, like the cave is still breathing, waiting for someone else to come back. Some caves lead to hidden places. Others lead to something that should never be disturbed. I've been caving for years, always with my best friend, Marcus. We've explored endless vertical drops, narrow cracks that feel like a second skin, and tunnels so silent they mess with your balance. It's the silence that always gets to you, that perfect, pressing silence that makes you start to hear your own thoughts out loud. But nothing ever truly scared me underground until our last trip. We were exploring a lesser-known cave system tucked behind a seasonal waterfall. We'd waited until early winter to explore it. Low water levels made access possible. It was narrow and unmarked, and we knew we'd be crawling the entire way. Marcus and I had mapped over a dozen systems together. We knew each other's cadence, our breathing, even the rhythm of our footfalls. Underground, we moved like one mind split between two bodies. That's what made this worse. That's what made this feel impossible. We entered around noon, crawling, squeezing, dragging ourselves through slick rock. We reached a chamber about 40 minutes in, tight, with two narrow tunnels splitting in opposite directions. I stopped to rest. Marcus didn't. "I'll check the right one," he said, voice echoing. "Catch up in a minute." I nodded and took a swig from my pack. A few minutes passed. Maybe 5. Then I heard him call. "You coming?" I shouted back. "Which way'd you go?" He didn't answer, so I assumed he went right, just like he said. I followed. It was tight. My shoulders scraped the walls, and my helmet kept catching on the ceiling. I could hear Marcus ahead of me. His boots, the clang of a water bottle, the occasional grunt. "I'm right behind you," I called. "I know," he said back. "Tunnel opens up ahead," and it did. The path widened into a small dome-shaped chamber, empty, still. My headlamp scanned the space. No Marcus. Then I heard it again, his voice, behind me. "Wait up." I turned slowly. My light caught only rock. The tunnel I'd just crawled through was empty. He hadn't passed me. I stood there frozen, every nerve in my body tensed like a wire. "Marcus," I whispered. No reply. Then, footsteps. From the tunnel behind. Rhythmic, close. I backed away slowly. My lamp flickered. I tapped it. Nothing changed. That's when I saw the shape emerging. Not crawling. Standing upright. Too tall to have fit through the tunnel. My heart stopped. But the voice, it was Marcus's. "Why'd you stop?" it said. The words were right. The tone was off. Slightly too calm. Like someone impersonating him. Almost convincing. Almost. I turned and ran, half tripping, scraping my shoulder and smashing my knee on a rock. The tunnel I thought I'd entered into had split. Now it was 3 paths, not 2. Which way had I come from? I spun, gasping for breath, trying to listen for the sound of my real friend. Nothing. Just that voice again, from the middle tunnel. "Come on, don't make me crawl." I picked the left tunnel and ran, and ran. And eventually, I saw light. Marcus was there, helmet lamp on, looking shaken. We nearly collided. "I thought you were behind me," he said. "I waited in the chamber. You never came. I was following you," I said. "Your voice, your steps. I heard you." He looked at me, pale and confused. "I didn't go down any tunnel. I waited in that chamber the whole time." I didn't believe him at first. Not because I thought he was lying, but because the alternative was worse. Much worse. A few weeks later, Marcus sent me a photo he didn't remember taking. It was from his GoPro, grainy, low light, taken somewhere near that dome-shaped chamber. At the edge of the frame, there's someone crawling through a tunnel. Same boots, same gear. Me. But if I'm the one in the picture, then who took it? And who was I talking to? There's an unspoken rule in caving circles. If you hear a sound that doesn't belong, turn back. It doesn't matter if it's a whisper, a tap, or the sound of something breathing. If you can't explain it, leave it behind. I didn't listen to that rule. It happened in southern Utah. We were mapping a forgotten cave system just beyond an old quarry, one that hadn't been marked on any updated survey maps. There were 4 of us, all experienced enough to know better than to let nerves get the better of us. We split up. My partner Alex and I took a descending passage that funneled downward at a steep angle, growing narrower the deeper we went. The others stayed near the entrance, documenting rock formations. The walls grew colder the further we went. Strange, considering we weren't that deep. At about 30 minutes in, the corridor opened into a small, oddly smooth chamber. That's when we saw it. A wall. Not natural. not part of the cave's formation. Just a tightly packed stone seal, flat and unevenly stacked, like it had been built by hand. No cement, no metal, just old stone, wedged together with eerie precision. It looked ancient. Alex stared at it for a long time before muttering, "Why would anyone seal off a cave like this?" Then, the tapping started. 3 slow, deliberate knocks, as if someone or something was just on the other side of that stone barrier. The sound echoed strangely, but not from around us. It came from behind the wall. We both froze. Alex looked at me like he was waiting for an explanation. I gave him none, because I didn't have one. Then we heard it again. This time closer. I whispered, "Water maybe?" But we both knew that wasn't true. I stepped forward, hand out, and placed my palm against the wall. The stone was cool and vibrating, barely, like something was shifting beyond it. Alex leaned in too, squinting through a small crack where the stones didn't quite align, and he jerked back suddenly. "What?" I asked. He said nothing, just stared at the crack, mouth slightly open. So I looked too. Inside the narrow gap, no bigger than 2 fingers, I saw something. An eye. Not human, not quite animal. Wide. Unblinking. Pale. It was staring straight back at us, and it didn't blink. The tapping returned, louder this time, not from the wall, but behind us, like something had moved past the crack and was now in the room. We turned and swept our lights wildly. Nothing. Just smooth walls, loose dirt, and falling dust. "Time to go," Alex said. I agreed, but as we backed away, I could swear I heard something on the other side of that wall, breathing. We didn't talk much during the crawl back, just focused on getting out. Every now and then I'd glance over my shoulder, half expecting something to be following us through the tight corridor. But nothing ever did. Not then, anyway. I tried to write it off. Maybe it was just some buried animal. Maybe we imagined it. The eye. The tapping. Maybe we breathed in something weird. But then, it followed me home. 3 nights later, around 2 a.m., I heard it. Soft, muffled, on my bedroom wall. At first I thought it was a dream. Then it came again. The same rhythm as before. I ran outside in the cold night air. There was no one there, no footprints in the snow, just silence, and that sinking, echoing pressure in my chest. That feeling of being watched, even when you're alone. Especially when you're alone. It's been months. I've moved since. I don't go caving anymore. I sold my gear. I even changed my number. But sometimes, when the house is quiet, I'll hear it again. Just 3 taps. Always from the same direction. Thank you for listening. Please comment below what you would like to hear next.